Hello fellow humans and welcome to this week's shop review. Now starting off with the tanks and a rather weird bundle, and that is the Scorpion G and the KPZ 70, a tier 9 heavy tank that, to be fair, isn't really that good because it does have 560 alpha damage, but it completely lacks DPM and the gun depression, and the mobility is just about fine. Armor, solid on the turret, the hull's pretty penable in any way, so in terms of the tier 9 premiums, not really the best choice. Kennedy 1. Object 752, way better choices there. And the Scorpion G is a vehicle that can be excellent if you're a good tank destroyer player. If you, let's say, don't want to play the grill anymore because it's being nerfed absolutely into the ground, you can substitute it with a vehicle like this while also making creds. 2.8k DPM, 460 alpha damage, only 6 degrees of gun depression, but it is a Panther chassis that has no armor on it. Mobility is solid, it's sort of similar to the KPZ, but it does accelerate a bit faster. Traverse speed, that's fine enough. Now, it does have a turret, which makes it a lot more versatile than your average tank destroyer, but obviously the armor is absolutely non-existent, so either you have to be very good at close-range combat, or you simply can't do that at all. It's a good tank destroyer, however. 15.5k for both of them, with, unfortunately, locked ×5s, which makes them somewhat useless, and obviously other pointless add-ons like crates. It can be a good deal if you can deal with the subpar KPZ 70, and you can deal with the good, but requiring a good player, Scorpion G. Next, we have something very specific, because we have two tank destroyers. The Canoniac Panzer, which, like the Scorpion G, doesn't have any armor whatsoever, but it does have a worse gun, essentially, less DPM, and less alpha damage as well, mounted on a vehicle that doesn't have a traversable turret. However, it does have more gun depression, does have a bit more mobility, but it obviously does not have a usable turret, which doesn't really make it that good, essentially confining this vehicle to sniper exclusive roles, because in close range combat, without a turret, without armor, you can't do anything with this vehicle. And the G-Saw, it is more of a medium tank than a tank destroyer really, and has a two-shot 2.4k DPM autoloader with 350 alpha damage, so it's basically the slower version of the Barask that has more penetration and does have Hesh with 440 alpha damage, which does make it very nice. 187 pen there. Mobility, could be a bit better. And the armor doesn't really exist that much, so don't rely on that whatsoever. But overall, it is a solid vehicle that again requires a good player to pull it off, so nothing here for new players in the shop whatsoever, and that does continue on as well with the T25A, which you shouldn't buy no matter what kind of player you are. But then we have the Jagdtiger for 5.5k gold. So if you are on the lookout for a tank destroyer that is a lot easier to play than the others because it actually does have armor and does have 1,000 more DPM than, for example, a G-Saw, then this is what you're in for. And it is also cheaper at only 5.5k gold with 30 days of premium. However, remember, these 5.5k bundles often include 500,000 creds, which is not the case here, so this is a downgrade compared to the other 5.5k bundles. However, if you are in the market for a very strong tank destroyer, then this is pretty much it. It's the cheapest and the best performing because even though it is quite slow, it does have a lot more armor and is easier to play than a KPZ or a Scorpion, obviously at the downside of it being less maneuverable. And again, you still have to camp with the Scorpion G and the KPZ anyway if you're a bad player because you have no armor and no room for mistakes. So this is the best option, especially if you're a below average to average player. If you're above that, well, the G-Saw for 10k alone, not really worth it in my opinion. 8.5k, we can talk about it, but in that case, not really. So Jagdtiger, the best thing in the shop currently. And then we obviously have a very lovely formatting of the shop and the trashiest bundle one can imagine, and that is the Fire and Ice. So stay away from this one. And new in the shop, finally, after years and years of being confined and shackled to the endless abyss that are crates, the KPZ 50T is finally available properly in the shop for 25,000 gold. Or 42 euros in this case. 25k is still a bit much, but it's okay-ish for a, well, concoction of Leopard and E50M. So I'm going to have a look at this vehicle in detail later, so stay tuned for that. But let's continue with the shop review. Resources, this time, again, credit rotation. Don't buy the credit rotation. However, do open your free containers because they can include useful things, but on the other hand, absolutely stay away from any container bundles and also containers like this, because here's the thing, even if you get lucky, you always get lucky with the wrong tank. Let's say you play tank destroyers, you will end up with a light tank. That's how gambling works. You can't win unless you don't play. That's the only way to win, is to not play. Now, HWK30, it's a joke. I mean, do I need to say more? It's 180 euros for a piece of garbage. And then obviously the same with these containers. The tanks are random. So you will always get something you either already have or something you don't want. So don't buy these containers, ever. And then there is a draw for the Object 752, which is the best tier 9 tank in the game, essentially. However, is it worth it from the price? Given that there are 11 tiers and one of them costs 5.5k gold, you get to pretty much 20k gold to get to the vehicle. Now, is that worth it? If you're a really big fan of this vehicle and you do not mind getting the credits and the other things, then it can somewhat be worth it. But obviously, you most likely get the tank last because that's how gambling works. However, if you, let's say, play for the 30 gold and get 50k credits, and then you play for the 75 gold, like I'm doing here, then it can still be worth it. It gets less worth the later you go, because now I just got 10 times 5s for 75 gold, but now we get to 350. Now it starts to get questionable in terms of value, because you can end up with things like the camo, which have no return value whatsoever. The only value they do have is sentimental value of you think it looks good. That's the only value it has, because the resale value is 0. In other news, there is a VK4503 event ongoing, in which you have to play the vehicle to get gold boosters. Now, if you don't have the vehicle, how do you get it? Well, you need to complete the Pretzel Mania event, which apparently has a sausage as a picture. Like, it's a pretzel event, but the picture is a sausage. So that's very nice, but you can get the VK4503 for free in this event. It is a solid tier 7, but it is a tier 7, so keep your expectations in check here, but it is a very solid tier 7 vehicle. And if that's all you're going to have, it is a pretty solid thing to go for. You can also sell it for a bit of credits if you need that. Highly recommend doing this event. There isn't really any bad thing in this event, which is a very nice thing. I mean, you got the pretzel camo, but it looks funny, so there's that. And you also get boosters, which are always useful, so this is a good event. So what's special about this vehicle? Well, it's sort of a Leopard and an E50M smashed together. I already kind of mentioned that. Now, 3.3k DPM if you are using calibrated. It's pretty solid still. 0.3 accuracy, 8 degrees of gun depression, pretty good mobility. It kind of does go. And armor on the turret that is very usable. Now, the hull isn't really that well armored, especially the lower plate. It's pretty paper. Now, big problem really is only 320 alpha damage with this vehicle, which is quite a significant downside because obviously you have to peak a lot more than an E50 or an E50M. However, obviously, an E50M is a different kind of beast to this vehicle and a different role of tank, but you can obviously, as you can see right here, still get penned by a 183, but that's not really a problem. I'm not bothered by that. So at this point, it is essentially a 1v2, and a E75 is appearing, which now means I am out of here because all of our heavy tanks are on the bad side of the map, and the entirety of the enemy team is here, and they want to fuck. So, I'm not into that. Let's see. Let's get out of here. Let's get to the other side here, and maybe we can get some cross shots onto that IS-8 while we're in that avenue here. Nope, not quite. And now the E50 is dead. Now, if you're in a situation like this, get out. Like, if you play like that E50 there, then there is nothing to gain. Essentially, the only thing you do gain is your untimely death. So, don't do that. If you are in a situation like that where you see that your team isn't placed optimally, then obviously the best course of action is that you reposition yourself, because expecting team play in this game in 2023 is a bad idea. So don't do that. Instead, reposition yourself, gain a more optimal position, and then you'll be much better off. Now, I'm using calibrated for this vehicle because heat penetrations of tier 10 medium tanks suck. So getting that back to 330, which is what they used to be a very long time ago, is kind of a necessity. That does lose me about 250 DPM on the top end, but again, it is somewhat worth it to be able to, let's say, penetrate the front turret of a E100, which is very useful to have. Also the, for example, superstructure of a Jagdpanzer E100. Having those extra 30 mils of pen on heat shells is very useful, and if you have heat premium penetration and already have incredibly high DPM, there's not really any need to boost that DPM even further, but instead go more to security that the shots that you do have are more likely to hit. So 3.4k damage already. First game, well, it's not the first game because I obviously played this vehicle on a press account before, but just to prove a point here, it is a very formidable vehicle and I can recommend it. It is a bit overpriced, but if you are looking for the prime tier 10 collector medium, then this is it. Obviously the M60 isn't a real premium tank and the 121B is utter ass, and so is the MX-30B. So if you're in the market for a proper tier 10 collector medium tank, this is kind of the one good option you have, because the others suck. So to conclude, this is a very good vehicle, a little bit too expensive, however, I can recommend it.